Welcome back to Baltimore Data Week, Day 3. We are going to let participants join in the room. In the meantime, if you can answer the poll, you should see a poll asking you a couple questions about where you're from, if you live and work in the city of Baltimore, if you don't work in the city of Baltimore, and then if you are a community member or a nonprofit or government. That way our speakers today will know who's in the virtual room with us. And in the meantime, my name is Seema Iyer, and I oversee the Baltimore Neighborhood Indicators Alliance. And I'm going to introduce my team as we go along. This is the third day of Baltimore Data Week, and we are excited to hear today about State of Maryland's open data portals and other work that's going on at the Department of Information. A little bit about the Baltimore Neighborhood Indicators Alliance. We've been around for 20 years, and our job is to try and pull out data from public agencies and private agencies and put it back in the hands of communities so they can keep track of what's going on in their neighborhoods. We are part of the National Neighborhood Indicators Partnership. There are 30 cities around the country that we're part of a learning network for. And if you want to learn about any of those other cities, take a look at neighborhoodindicators.org and find any one of our partners around the country that we learn a lot from. Our signature product is the Vital Signs Report. The Vital Signs Report is a compendium of over 100 different indicators for all 55 communities in our city. We break up the city into 55 communities, as you can see in this map. So every year we're adding, 5,500 data points to an already existing 20-year database. And that's what we do all the time, is searching for good data that our communities need across a wide variety of topics, from housing to sustainability. Tomorrow, on Friday, we're going to be learning much, much more about the Vital Signs report. This is the 20th edition. So join us tomorrow if you can. This is the BINYA team. Like I said, I'm the director. We have Cheryl Knott, who's our research manager. Logan Schertz is our research analyst. Our brand new developer as of just a few months ago, Herman Paredes. Brittany McMullen is our real estate data analyst, and even brand newer is Ashley Edwards, who just came on board last week as our first ever civic engagement and communication specialist. So welcome to Ashley. So any one of us, if you see us here virtually or in person tomorrow, if you're joining us tomorrow at Baltimore Data Day, the final day here at the University of Baltimore. And if you have any questions, all of us are here to try and help you answer those. So you'll see us in the chat. We'll be answering questions as you have them alongside with our great speakers today. And here to help make sure everybody has access to information. So, like I said, today is day 3. We're here on Thursday, July 21st, talking about a lot of stuff going on in Maryland. This session is going to go on from 10 to 11:15, and then we have a subsequent session from 11:20 to noon about the housing data portal that the Access to Justice Commission has put out. So lots of data at the statewide level, including obviously Baltimore City. And then this afternoon, we have another session. It's the same link. So if you just keep this Zoom link on all day long, you'll get all of it. So in the afternoon, it's going to be talking about vacant and abandoned housing, how to write a grant, and you're going to hear about great work that our data science students are doing, including Herman, who's our developer. And then again, tomorrow is in person. Hopefully you can join us either in person or virtually in the morning. And then in the afternoon, we have what's called an unconference, where people have pitched their own idea that they want to talk about, and people get to vote. It's I guess in a week of elections, we have yet another election tomorrow of what you want to learn and talk about tomorrow at Baltimore Data Week. So it's an unconference. Join us. It'll be very interactive. It'll meet your needs as a user. Let's just tell our speakers who is in the virtual room. So we have 32% of us live and work in the city of Baltimore. And we have 25% of us that neither live or work in the city of Baltimore, but still love it, which is great. We're happy to have you. And you can see we've got folks from education, nonprofit, government, community. So welcome to everyone. So our speakers, I'm going to turn it over to our speakers today, and particularly turn it over to JB Churchill, who is the Technology Platform Manager at the Maryland Department of Information Technology. Thank you to JB, to Mark, to Matt for heading up this session this morning, and we look forward to learning much, much more about the state of Maryland's Open Data Portal. Turning it over, and we were going to put the bios for all of our speakers in the chat. Also in the chat, while I should have remembered, we'd love to know who's here. So feel free to introduce yourself in the chat, put your name, affiliation, why you're here, any other fun things you want everybody else to learn about. And that way we get to know each other over the course of the hour. And if, as you have questions, if you do want to put them in the chat, feel free to do that. Our speakers know that they're there, and we're in the background helping our speakers make sure that they can answer your questions. So don't tune out. We're going to be here with you and help learn about how to use our open data portals from the state of Maryland. I think I got everything, JB. I'm going to turn it over to you.
All right, great. Can you all hear me? And can you, let's see, I need to share my screen, don't I? Let's do that.
Yep, we can hear you.
All right. You see the slide there?
Yep.
Okay, great. We were excited to talk to you today about our open data portal and about our open data program at opendata.maryland.gov. And a little bit about us. We'll each speak about what we do on our team and for Data Services in general. I'm JB Churchill, Technology Platform Manager for the Data Services team, working under the direction of Julia Fisher. There's about 13 of us in the group in the Open Data program. It's pretty much us presenters and Julia as well. Like I say, everything's under her direction. So I've been here about 2 years, and I've been a GIS professional for about 25 years. Prior to this, I was in county government. So it was an interesting transition into this role during the pandemic, even. So I've moved into more of the business intelligence and open data side of our team since I've been here and taken on. The platform manager is a newer role. And I've got a couple of folks with me today, Mark and Matt. I'll just let them introduce themselves.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Mark Corser. I am a senior data analyst in the Geographic Information Office at Do It. I work under JB. I've been with the office for about a year now, but have been a Maryland employee since 2019. I'm excited to talk to you about open data. I have a history in GIS analysis, data administration, data management. Judging by the introductions in the chat, I feel like a lot of people here will really be able to benefit from this talk quite a bit. So I'm excited to share what we have.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Matt Smeriglio. I am the Open Data Intern with the Department of Information Technology. I work under JB and Mark in the Business Intelligence team, and I've got a background in public policy from the University of Maryland, Baltimore County, with a lot of big focus on data analytics. Yeah, similarly, I'm looking at some of the intros in the chat, and I think I see a lot of kindred spirits. So I think we'll have a lot to discuss today with regard to open data. Looking forward to it.
Thanks, you guys. So I'll start with a little bit of history of the open data in Maryland. And the Open Data Act state law was enacted to provide transparency so that businesses and citizens, etc., could use the state's data to aid in decision-making, and it was made effective on June 1st, 2014. And preceding that, at the federal level, was President Obama's 2013 open data policy, which made open and machine-readable data the new default for government information. And it was also preceded by our state's Public Information Act. And digging through old presentations from the Open Data Council, I found that there were discussions surrounding the Public Information Act at our early council meetings, and I suspect that the Open Data Act was proposed because of those PIA or Public Information Act requests coming out of that act, 10-901. Open data is something that benefits those responsible for making the data widely available, as well as those who use it. And that's highly preferable to having to research and respond to each PIA request as it comes in. PIA requests are reserved then for information that could be made available, but is not, for whatever reason, made available. Incidentally, the main reason for not sharing the data is if it contains PII or personally identifiable information, it would violate the law in that case if that were to be shared. So make every effort to prevent that, and eliminating the need to research individual requests is just one of the main benefits of open data. And I mentioned the federal open data policy as a precursor to Maryland's Open Data Act, and it's important to remember back even further and consider some of the earlier data sets that were shared voluntarily, such as weather satellite data, global positioning systems, and these technologies have become essential and possibly even taken for granted as being always available. The expectation of the provision of data creates a responsibility for the data owners and data stewards to provide the best and most up-to-date data as they possibly can. The Open Data Council, or Council on Open Data, as it's sometimes called, referenced in sections 10-1501 through 1504 of the Act. The duties of the council, and I apologize, this is a long list, are to recommend, coordinate, identify, advise, encourage, plan, promote, and advocate, essentially all the things for Maryland's open data. Council members consist of the agency secretaries, all of them from the executive branch, as well as appointed representatives from all the regions of the state, western, eastern, central, and southern parts of the state, and appointees also from the public sector. And the Secretary of DO-IT, Michael Leahy, is the chair of the council. We hold quarterly meetings that are open to the public and that we advertise on our website, which is shown in the screenshot. It's also at opendata.maryland.gov with a link that comes from the menu at the top. And the development of our program has been pretty much handed off to me. We're still a little bit in transition from Julia, my supervisor, Julia Fisher. Our program, Open Data, has certain staff responsibilities, and this is the bulleted list at the top. Supporting the agencies. To me, this means meeting with data leaders in all agencies of the executive branch of state government to be sure they understand the requirements of the Act, their various roles, if applicable, to the process, and work with them to identify and process data that they have or that they can make available to the portal. This is at all levels, from the council member themselves, the agency secretaries, to the new agency data officers, the staff who may be tasked with using our GIS and BI technologies to create open data. Further support them through the automation steps that can help put the data where it needs to be in the hands of the public. And our group has programming skills and software that allow us to develop automation, which can make the process relatively straightforward. We meet with agency leads. The conversation can often lead to some brainstorming about things like an ETL process, extract, transform, and load process. They have a lot of smart people too in these agencies. They have many times that intelligence is in the form of highly technical staff that support these efforts, so that we don't have to do everything on our team, but we do offer a lot of services in that regard. As a leader working within this team and my responsibility for the success of the Open Data program, I really want to accomplish a lot. We just started outlining our first 2-year strategic plan. And Mark will discuss our Data Freshness initiative, so I don't want to steal his thunder there, but we're responsible for administering the portal. So we write up the SOPs and the policy and standards documents, as well as these quarterly open data hosting the quarterly meetings and our annual report. Some of the benefits of open data are to facilitate citizen engagement, awareness of the data, activists, citizens, and stakeholders, and just otherwise interested people want to know about the inner workings of our government. It provides transparency. The data holds us accountable for our actions. The MTP site is a good example of this. If someone could put that in the chat, it's just mtp.maryland.gov. I mentioned the scientists, stakeholders, etc., under the citizen engagement, and often these are people that have the solutions that we need in our government. So public opinion tends to sway politics and hopefully science conducted with accurate data, like we work to ensure. Hopefully that helps. And I already mentioned FOIA requests and information gathering. Our employee time is valuable. So development of automation is typically a cost that pays dividends. Old coins in a chest. Let's see. Number 5, I spoke of this bullet in bullet 1. It's the scientists, engineers, etc., that can figure out ways to use our GIS and business intelligence APIs and use them to develop things like web apps, phone applications. Real estate is a good example of this type of thing, where MLS and Zillow, Redfin, etc., use land records that are provided and enable them to build such tools. And counties have recently made use of our COVID data that we provide in addition to the data that we show on coronavirus.maryland.gov. A lot of times they want to take the data that we provide and just show the information relevant to their county. So a little bit more on our team. I've mentioned Julia a couple of times. She supervises everyone in our group, and there's others outside of our open data group on the right there, the GIS and imagery programs. We participate in those things as well. But Matt and Mark work directly under me, and so that's our team. I wanted to talk a little bit about that hierarchy, just for a little perspective on kind of how small we are, really. It's kind of amazing to me that we're able to keep everything going and keep things fresh. Our current initiatives include development of that strategic plan document, outreach and training, and data freshness. Again, we're going to talk about that in a little bit. In fact, I think we're moving into Mark's part of the presentation at this point, Mark. So if you could unmute and.
Hello, everybody. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about our various data platforms and our data freshness initiative that we're working on. So first and foremost, I think the backbone of our office's public data is on a platform called IMAP. IMAP is the Maryland State GIS Data Catalog. It runs on Esri software, mainly the Esri Hub, but it leverages ArcGIS Online. For many of you may be familiar with this. This is an industry standard platform, very much the industry leader, some would say monopoly, but an industry standard platform. It integrates seamlessly with any sort of GIS software, ArcPro, ArcMap, QGIS, what have you. The link for IMAP is here, but just to quickly talk a little bit about it. Everyone has seen the Johns Hopkins COVID dashboard that was released shortly after the pandemic hit. This was built on ArcGIS Online. It's a data visualization software, it's a data editing software, data sharing software. You can access all this data through the portal, through ArcGIS Online in your web browser, or if you have a GIS software like ArcPro, ArcMap, or QGIS, or one of the other open source ones, you can access all this data directly through REST endpoints. It's all open, it's all free, and it really is kind of the backbone of our open data, at least with a geographic component. Next slide, please. The other side to our open data program is the open data portal. And this houses all of the state's non-geographic data, all of your spreadsheets, all of your tables, all of your information, even PDFs that do not have a geographic component. It's incredibly functional. You can manage, you can edit, you can download data sets. It's all organized using extensive metadata, which will come into play in a little bit. You can create views and subsets of existing data sets. And you can even design data visualizations within the platform. This platform provides the ability to generate automatic feeds. You can copy a JSON link or a direct feed, and you can digest that into whatever program you're using. And if you're not looking for a live feed, you can download the data by various access types and download formats, CSV, Excel, JSON, what have you. So it's very approachable, very open, and you can search very, very easily. Some examples of the data that you might find on here are agricultural data. You could find Department of Juvenile Services data in terms of population data by zip code. The number of data sets, numbers in thousands. It's very accessible and can benefit educational institutions, businesses, general citizens, nonprofits, other governments. It's meant to be shared, and we're very proud of all of it. The link is here. I'm sure we'll share this presentation with the attendees, so you can keep these links. Next slide, please. Accessing these portals and platforms, it's quite easy. With IMAP, it's completely open. You don't need to log in. You can just go to the website and start searching, start downloading, start connecting and learning. If you want to dig deeper into that data, you can download ArcGIS online, or pardon me, not download. You can create an ArcGIS online account for free. It's a basic account, but it provides you basic map making functionality as well as connectivity to the state's organization, or access to the assets owned by the state organization, I should say. For the open data portal, Maryland employees can follow this link here. They lead to just quick surveys. Who are you? Your email address. If you're a Maryland employee, who's your supervisor, etc. Just that we can set up an account for you. One note on ArcGIS products. If you are a student or an individual, you can get an annual account for $100 a year. The student one, I believe you need a .edu address, email address, and you get 10 times as many credits as you do for a regular individual license for being a student. And those credits can be used for a variety of services provided by Esri. So with all of that said, next slide, please, JB. Our office, mainly the three of us, are working on a project called the Data Freshness Initiative. We want to keep Maryland's public data clean, current, and relevant. Basically, we have a product, an automatically generated report called the Data Freshness Report. It informs us of a number of, I guess, aspects about a certain data set. Update frequency, who owns the data, where it's located, when it was produced, in addition to all of the metadata contained within the data set. Obviously, metadata is data about the data. We want to make sure that all of it is current. We want to make sure that covers the correct time period as labeled. We want to make sure that it's clean, in that all of the metadata is properly filled out, that if there's a question about the data set, people can identify who owns the data, what dates it covers, important tags, so it's searchable. We also want to make sure that it's relevant. We want to make sure that the publishers and the organizations and business units that are providing this data want to have it published in the first place, that it's helpful, that it's accurate. And if it's not, we'll take it down. But if these organizations and business units want to add more data, well, we can help them do that. We can make sure that the data online is the most relevant for that sector. When we meet with all of these organizations, publishers, business units that want to or are required to publish data, it's a very conversational meeting. You know, we want to work with them to make the best product that they can make, because our role is of a librarian, of a curator. We want to make sure that everything is in pristine condition, but we don't want to kind of put our fingerprint on any of the data. We just want to make sure that it's coming as purely from the source as possible. Next slide, please. As I mentioned before, we want to identify any weak points, quote unquote, in the metadata, in the understanding when is it relevant, where is it relevant, what is the jurisdiction. Update frequency is a very important aspect for us because we want to make sure that it's current. The time period it covers, tags, as you can see, this specific data set covers a number of different topics. But also we want to provide a dataset owner as well as a source link. If you can click the link and find more information about that dataset, whether it's on that organization's website or anything, we want to help you find out more about it. So there are standards and policy that the state publishes for metadata, and it's a very easy rubric to follow. We make sure that all of these data sets are abiding by these standards so that everything is searchable. And these are some quick questions that we often ask ourselves to help us maintain cleanliness, currency, and relevance. Next slide, please. So far, and this is a cyclical process. When we've reached the end, we kind of just start again to maintain that currency. We've met with 29 agencies across the state government and organization to refresh the public data. And we ask them, do you want to add? Do you want to edit? How can we help you manage this data according to these policies and legislative mandates? Again, sometimes publishing public data is voluntary. Organizations see the value in providing citizens, businesses, educational institutions, nonprofits, what have you, with more data. If it can be revealed by the truth, let it be revealed by the truth, type of thing. But other times, data is legislatively mandated to be public. In that case, we can help whatever agency or organization in the government achieve that end. These are just a few of the organizations that we work with. Again, what is that? 5 of 29, 6 of, 5 of 29. If you can think of it, we've probably worked with them. We've touched pretty much all of the data sets in the open data portal. And we are here to help. You know, if any of you would like to learn more about a certain data set, shoot us an email and we can get you more details. If you need help finding something, we can point you in the right direction. I'm a big believer in open data, so I'm here to help you guys. I think I'm going to hand it off to JB next for a quick demonstration, but thank you so much for listening.
Thanks. So yeah, we're going to go into a little bit of a demonstration of a mapping visualization, and I wanted to talk about that a little bit. We created some FAQ documents for this. This question came up more than once, I guess that's why it would be a frequently asked question, but we were asked, how would I identify crashes by location? Because I think a lot of people see this primer data set as just a static, sort of not static, but non-spatial data set. But this one on our platform is one of a few that does have geolocation. You can export it as a shapefile, as well as CSV or KML as well in a spatial format, GeoJSON, that type of thing. So I had people were trying to do filter the data, the tabular data, by latitude and longitude, which is a crude way to narrow things down to a specific location. So I suggested that they could do a mapping visualization. I'm just going to jump into that here. We have a couple of other options here when you move into the spatial realm again, but we're just going to do it right here on the Socrata platform, or they've changed their name. It's not really Socrata anymore. It's Tyler Data and Insights. But this is where you go to start a visualization of any kind. And I'm just going to go with a map. And we were going to talk a little bit about some of the more popular data sets on the portal, but instead we've decided to just kind of use the demos to show off a couple of those. The crash data seems to be one in particular that generates a lot of interest, a lot of downloads, and a lot of exploration. So when I launched the visualization, the mapping visualization, it creates this geocolumn, and by default, it chose the right one. This has to be configured when we upload the data so that location gets created from the latitude and longitude column. So with this point map, there's not a lot of information initially until I set up these flyout details. So I would pick a title, something like the report number could be interesting. If you're familiar with a crash that you're looking for, that type of thing, you could also style by some measure, change the size or the color of a point, similar to what you would do with the GIS tools. And for the flyout, we can add some values, and I've explored this data already. I mean, typically you'd spend some time and look through the data set. You know, I was going to show that we also have like a data dictionary, and there's several other crash data sets that go with this one. The person details and vehicle details, that type of thing, the road circumstances, all these are in separate data sets. And we have this data dictionary that's just basically a download. So this page here. So that's what I was showing there in Excel. I guess you can see the Excel sheet that I've got there. Anyway, I found that the descriptions were the best codes to use. And these were created in an ETL process that we run using a tool called FME. So the codes are what comes in the sheet initially, and we create the descriptions from the codes using the information in that dictionary. We've got descriptions of the road conditions. We've got descriptions of which county. We've got descriptions of a light. I think that's not the traffic light, that's the available light. And we have the type of collision, we've got surface condition. This really makes the best map if I get all of the descriptions included here that I can. The signal. Surface condition. Get rid of that. All right. I think we've got enough. Right now, it's just showing the number of points in a general area. When I zoom in close enough, then I start to see the individual points. Ones that are clustered together still kind of be split out. You can look at the information for each of those. If I decide that I don't like the report ID in there, it's not enough information. I could go back in here using edit and change that if I'd like. But this is a much better way than trying to filter through the table, which I think Matt's going to demonstrate some table filtering as well in his part of the presentation. So yeah, I think I should probably wrap up here because I'm looking at the time and Matt has a good bit to share as well. So I am going to stop sharing my screen altogether at this point and hand things over to Matt Smeriglio.
Thank you, JB. Yeah, I will go ahead and share a window here. And we can go ahead and get started with some of the visualization tools, navigating the portal. Let me just go ahead and make sure I am sharing the correct screen. One moment. All right, assuming I've done this correctly, we should all be looking at the Open Data Portal homepage. Yeah, just to start, like everyone was saying, this is a free resource that with features that you can use entirely within your web browser, like JB was showing off. It's full of government-provided data sets and assets that are of use to people in Maryland, people in Baltimore, and people from all around the Chesapeake region. So to start, I'll just go ahead and go over some of the quick navigation features. Right up here in the upper right, naturally, like any good search engine, we've got your browser bar in case you know what exactly you're looking for. But as we scroll down, you can see that on the splash page, we've highlighted some different selections you can filter your data out by. So administrative data, data about the demographics of Maryland, the environment, all sorts of things. Here at the bottom, you can see we've also included a couple of important links as well. The first is a link to show you how up-to-date all of our data sets are. So like Mark was talking about, the Data Freshness initiative's main purpose is to keep these data sets up to date. And this is one of the foremost places you'll be able to find progress on that. We do an excellent job of keeping them that way, I like to think. Right next to that, you'll see the Maryland Transparency Portal, which JB had mentioned earlier. That's a great collaborative effort between a number of different departments to provide a look into where money in the state operating budget is going, where loan and grant money is going, and what vendors are being paid by the state government or receiving payments from the state. If you're interested in seeing how your government is working for you, I highly recommend this site as well. Next to that, if you've been parsing through our data and you feel it's lacking information on your topic of choice, or if you think there's some other aspect of the portal that you'd like to provide feedback on, this third link labeled "Let us know what you think" that's a great place to find you'll find a survey there that lets you maybe recommend a data set that you'd like to see or some other change to the portal. Finally, this link over here will take you to our IMAP site, where you can find data that corresponds with Maryland's geography, political boundaries, or anything else related to data or geospatial or mapping information. That could be anything from bike routes to features of the Chesapeake Bay watershed, almost anything really. So since I'm showing off the system's ability to make useful visualizations of all its data sets, I'll go ahead and find one that is extremely useful to Marylanders, such as a record of power outages throughout the state. I'd imagine plenty of people would want to know if a particular area is susceptible to power outages, and that sort of info is especially relevant as summer storms come and go on the daily. So I can either find that in data by searching directly for power outages in the search box, or I can click under the Environment tab to jump there pretty quickly. Since the data set is as popular as it is, it's right here at the top. But before I go too much further, I wanted to highlight what's going on here on the results page. So in the middle, naturally, we've got our results of data sets. But if you're looking through some of our 342 results here and you think there's too many to parse through, you need to weed some out, I would like to direct your attention over to the left-hand side, where you can see some options for filtering the data. Up top, since this is a platform where many members of the state government community can add to the portal, you can filter out data sets or any data that are not from an authoritative source. You can filter by an even greater number of areas as well if the 8 on the front page were not enough for you. You can also filter by the year it was uploaded, the type of asset it is, that sort of thing. So let me go ahead and click that county option. So that takes us to the landing page for the data sets, where you can view the metadata, or the data that tells you about the data. It will give you some information on when this data set was last updated, who updates it, what a column or a row is meant to stand for. As you can see here, this one is updated pretty regularly, about every 15 minutes. Let's see, by the Department of Information Technology. And if you look at the columns in the data and you notice they're labeled things like UID, but you're not certain what that stands for, naturally, you can look down here and find that it stands for unique ID. So with that, I'll go ahead and jump into the data. And like JB was showing, here it is in spreadsheet form, but we are more interested in, less so in all these numbers and words, and more so in the visualization. So One of the great things about this tool is that you don't need to have an account in order to use it, although you would need one if you were hoping to save it for later or publish it to our site. So as you can see, we've got a pretty intuitive visualization tool at our disposal, one where you can already kind of discern what's going on here just by looking at the symbols. Starting at the top, we can make all sorts of charts, bar charts, pie charts, timeline charts, histograms, that map we were showing off earlier. And if you've got dates in there, you can make a calendar. For the purposes of this demo, I'm going to go ahead and choose a timeline chart. Now the tool is pretty smart for the most part, and it can automatically deduce which fields are going to be most relevant to your visualization. Over here on the left-hand side, you can see that by selecting what type of graph we're making, the tool chooses the date stamp field for its x-axis, or the dimension we'd like to measure, since we're looking at time series data. And it chooses the count of the number of rows that share that date for its y-axis, or the measure. For this measure, we're going to go ahead and choose the number of outages instead. On its own, this data chart, it gets the point across, but it's not exceedingly useful. Although, you can see a few spikes occurred after some recent storms. However, we can make it even more detailed and more visually interesting by checking out the next tab over here on the left, Group Dimension Values. So this is where you can take one of the other dimensions or fields from our data set and have the tool split up the line accordingly. If, for example, you wanted to split up the data by the area power outages occurred in, you can select the area field from the drop-down list to start differentiating the lines a little bit. For the purposes of this chart, area is probably going to be our most useful tool to choose. Although there's no reason you couldn't pick one of the other areas if you just wanted to kind of see what the data set would do. So now that we can see just which counties suffered the greatest number of power outages over these past few days, it's understandable that a place like a city might top the chart over here, since it's got a greater number of people in it and therefore more likely to see more power outages. Places like Prince George's County and Hartford, being suburbs of big cities, are similar in that regard. But let's say you're not interested in all this extraneous data and this gigantic flyout, and you'd just rather look at the outages for Baltimore City. So that brings me up to the filters section. Over here in the top right, so if we add a filter for, say, area, and since this is a Baltimore Neighborhood Indicators Alliance meeting, I'm going to go ahead and choose an area, Baltimore City. So once I apply that, it'll weed out all the other data, and you can see, well, just how many power outages occurred in Baltimore City the other day. This one occurred on July 3rd and July 13th, which I believe corresponds to some recent storms we've had. So if you're satisfied with how your data is portrayed here, you can basically give your graph a title and you're done. But if there are other things you'd like to edit, I would direct your attention back over to the tabs on the far left, where you can begin to mess with axis values. You can set the data to look at logarithmic values. You can make reference lines if there's a particular value that you'd like to highlight at a particular place in the measure on the y-axis. You can edit colors if tan blue or bright blue is not your thing. All sorts of things. And mainly our big goal here is to find relevant, useful data to upload to the portal. So to that end, this data set, in particular, the power outages data, does get used over by the Maryland Department of Emergency Management's page, where they use our API to pull data directly into their application. As you can see, they also try to keep people updated on recent storm events. So just to make sure that information is readily available to everybody. Now, there was one more quick window I wanted to share, so I'm going to go ahead and show you what it looks like, just to show you how easy it is to upload data to the portal if you decide to go ahead and make an account. So this is what your account is going to look like once you click the sign in up option and put all your information in. If you decide, you know what, I'm a member of the state government, I'd like to upload some data, it's extremely easy. So you'd go right up here to the Create tool at the top, and you can make a data set using an Excel file, a CSV, a JSON file, anything really. If you're more interested in telling a story about some data that's uploaded, you can do that as well. But for the purposes of this demo, I'm going to go ahead and select data set. And the first thing I'm going to do is give it a name. Oh, and I may be zipping through this a little bit quickly, but you can then, once you get to the place where you upload the data, you'll start by clicking Add Data on the left here, browsing for that information on your computer. It should be just saved to my desktop, my example data. And like I said, the tool is very smart. So it automatically recognizes the first row in most CSV files as the title of the data set you'd like. Now, this is all fake data that I made up the other day, so none of it is actual personal identifying information of any kind, nor does it show any true useful information. But you'll notice here that in the year column, you'll want to make sure that the data is recognized not as a number with an actual value, but something more like text, so that the program realizes that's a year rather than something with a numeric value. Then you can go ahead and click Done. And if you ever need to reference it again, you can click Review and Configure Data, but we already did that. So instead, right before I'm able to publish it, the only thing I'll need to do is fill out some of the metadata in the metadata field. I'll give it a title, give it a quick description. I can indicate what each row in the data set means. Category to pop it under, let's say government. Give it some keywords. Say what organization is providing this data. Provide my email in case people need to get in contact with me about the data. And finally, select an agency that is responsible for it. As well as the place that the data is referencing. With that, I can go ahead and save the data. It's a pretty quick and easy process, and if it all looks good, all I have to do next is publish the data to the portal. So all in all, you can see that the Open Data Portal has a plethora of useful statistics and data. The Data and Insights application on that portal is an extremely useful, versatile, and easy to use. And the API can be used to link this data to any compatible sites to put relevant data front and center to your site's visitors, all of course free of charge and always regularly updated to provide working information to Marylanders. So with that, I can either pass it back to JB or I can open the floor to questions.
Let's go straight into the question. There's been quite a few in the chat already, so.
So there's a lot of excellent questions, and maybe I'll help start you guys off in the sense, first thinking philosophically, like how do you know what data sets to choose, which you talked a little bit about at the beginning, that's got to be relevant information. I'm assuming that the council helps determine maybe a priority of what you want to try and put up on the Open Data Portal, and maybe is there a way to see the actual inventory of data sets that are there? Is there a data set of data? Maybe that'll help kind of people that are just searching and exploring?
So your first question, who kind of decides and how do we determine what goes on the data portal? That is up to the policies and standards of each individual business unit, agency, department within the state government. They all have their own data governance policies, and we are here again as data stewards. We just want to make sure that that process to publishing is as seamless and as healthy as possible. So that question would be for the individual departments, agencies, etc.
Typically, we're just the data stewards, and they're the subject matter experts. So a lot of the more difficult questions need to go back to them. But all the data that we publish, like Matt filled out as Department of IT, a lot of times data is just handed to us and we upload it. We initially get those questions. So if they're easy enough and we know the answers, we can provide the. I didn't mean to cut you off.
And in terms of an inventory of data sets, I believe Matt showed an option on the Open Data Portal, seeing, if data sets were current, if they're up to date. You can search there, and that'll provide a list of all of the data sets available, publicly
Our
available.
Data Freshness dashboard would show that too, wouldn't it, Mark? I think that
yes, it should.
That's right.
I don't know if will it show individual data sets or does it show general statistics? My mind
It should
is
show
they're
individual
just
data sets.
Go ahead, Matt.
Oh, that was all I had to add. That yes, it does show. Well, the dashboard shows general trends, but the data set that dashboard pulls from shows individual data sets.
Gotcha. Let's link that. Can we link that dashboard in the chat?
Sure. Absolutely.
You got it? Are there any other questions?
Is there kind of the most requested data sets that you either already have or on the, I guess you said crash might be one of them, but or is there a data set that people have requested that's not here yet? Like a data wish list.
Yeah. That's a good question. Maybe we should start recording those requests.
Maybe people can put in the chat what they want to see.
Yeah. If there
can
are
actually see what
I'm sure we could reach out to
create our wish list right here.
Sure, we could reach out to the relevant organizations and agencies to figure that out if we can. But the crash data is a very popular one, popular in that it's most widely used. All of our COVID data is very well trafficked, and that's all available, obviously, publicly on IMAP and the Open Data Portal. The MTP site uses all of the financial data for the state is well trafficked. I don't know which follows what. Are data sets more used because there's a dashboard already existing to kind of explore the data, or are dashboards created because data sets are well trafficked and we want to make them more accessible,
right?
Or more easily understandable? I'm not quite sure which one, chicken or the egg, but they often go hand in hand.
Is there any question in the chat that you feel like we haven't, or they haven't answered yet, that you want more information on? I know the chat was very, very robust, which is awesome. And I know you guys were answering as we went along.
We could have missed some things, or not provided a sufficient answer. I think one of the things that in that last question was just, I was thinking that the law does require us to provide the data that the public is asking for. So, you know, that wish list, it's something that, you know, it goes to the agency. Like Mark said, it's up to the agency to decide whether that is data that they can share or not. And in some cases, if there is data that does have like personally identifiable information, they can still share it. They just don't do it as in a public forum because it provides too much information. But like, you know, if for court cases and things like that, sometimes people need to know, you know, your personal information is, you know, is available in those types of instances. So they have to make that available, but that comes in as one of those public information requests. And, you know, I mean, if there is data that agencies are being asked for regularly through public information requests that they could share, I think that they would get the hint that they need to make that more readily available in a machine readable format.
And then Megan's question, which is again, both technical as well as philosophical, is the data clean? We could probably have another hour conversation about clean data. So I think the way to think about it is the open data portal, or the way I think about it is that these agencies are collecting data in order for them to do their job, right? It's an administrative purpose that they collect information as they collect it, you know, whatever that intake process is. When it comes on, and so for all of the data science students, there's plenty of you on this call. When you look at that data, you have to understand why it was collected and for what purpose, because it's generally not being collected for any kind of analysis by you. It's being collected for some other agency purpose, and they're putting it out there. So, you know, the whole act of data science is about cleaning the data, making sure that it, you know, you kind of verify what's in there yourself. Baltimore Data Week is about all of us together that are thinking about verifying the data to work together and learn from each other, because we all have things that we've learned from looking at open data portals that we can share with each other so that we're not just always recreating the wheel amongst ourselves. So that's really what this whole week is about, because we all know things based on our own interaction with open data. So, you know, as you find things amongst yourselves, the best thing is to go back to the originating agency and say, you know, we found this as a potential error, or we found this as a potential, you know, something that you may want to create an ELT for that cleans it before I see it, which we've done. The Baltimore Neighborhood Indicators Alliance has done with our own city open data office for years. Like, we've gone back to them and said, here's something that you can do to actually make it cleaner in a more routine fashion. So that's kind of a way to think about it. It's an iterative process to make that data better and more useful.
Yeah, and to that point, you can use us as a resource as well. We do want to make the data as accessible as possible. So while the actual values and the arrangement of the data in the table may be not as conducive to your research as you would like, if there's an error or missing values, or if you're trying to geolocate XY coordinates and it's not working for some reason, we can help you troubleshoot, and we can help you make sure that the data is accessible and open in its intended form. So please lean on us if you need. You can do that by submitting a ticket to the Do It service desk, and that I'm getting that link for you right now. You can send an email to servicedesk@maryland.gov with any issues you may have. And if you, because we're all data scientists or data stewards or data analysts in some way, explain your problem accurately, and it'll get diverted to our office, and we'll help you out from it.
And that email address is also the contact email for a lot of the data sets on the portal.
Excellent. In the 20, Megan asked if in the 29 agencies that you've already contacted, the judiciary one of them, which I guess isn't an agency, it's a different section. But although we're going to hear from the judiciary literally at 11:20, we're actually having members of the Maryland judiciary come talk about some other data that they're working on. So maybe that's a good question for them.
I don't believe we do. They're not one of the 29 agencies we've worked with. JB, does that ring a bell for you? Not for me.
It doesn't. No.
No.
I don't believe we've been in contact with them, no.
Yeah, well, so the next session starts at 11:20 is with members of the judiciary. So, or members of the broad range of judiciary. There's members of the Access to Justice Commission, which includes the judiciary. So maybe a good question to them.
We don't
any other questions?
necessarily. I was just wanted to add that we don't necessarily have all of the agency's data in the portal. They may choose some other venue for sharing it. In a perfect world, we'd have at least something in the catalog in order to make our portal sort of a one-stop shop for finding the state's data. That's what we want to achieve. And when we have these conversations about data freshness, that's something that we stress as well. We've seen agencies putting data downloads of spreadsheets directly on their websites and that type of thing instead of in our portal. And we'd hope to reroute that to come to us, but anyway.
Right.
Nick asked a question. How well do you guys work with integration platform APIs to receive data? On the open data portal, on each assets page, there is a selection near the top called API. And there is an API endpoint that you can use to link directly to the data set. So it's very, very simple.
There is asking, I think, about Maryland real property file. I don't know if you can talk about sometimes the statewide data set, like Maryland Property View, is actually the compilation of all the individual counties. Do you have any examples of that where actually the state is literally just the integration of all the counties? Do you guys do that, or is it already integrated and into one Maryland by the time you guys see it?
It's integrated by the time we see it. I believe planning puts that data set together, Department of Planning.
Yep.
But it is available on IMAP and it will be marked authoritative. So that's easy to find. But yeah, again, we're the curators, stewards. We get that data from the other agencies.
Other agencies that put all the counties together and make it. So in terms of who's got their most recent real property file, it would probably be the originating county. But as Dexter just said, some of the originating counties don't share them individually. So you'd have to go to Maryland Property View to get all of the counties together. So
yeah, there's actually, we do process that stuff on a county basis, but I think that it's shared the way it's shared and integrated through through an ETL, and not all the data that comes in the file is shared, and that may be a PIA type thing as well. So I think there's Maryland Property View, but we also have the real property data on the open data portal that's processed through a FME server. And
oh, interesting.
Yeah, there's data that comes from MDP and data that comes from SDAT, and it's concatenated together into one data set. But there are fields that are left out, and that was you know, before my time, that process was put in place, and I don't really understand the
I would
why or the
imagine
wherefore of it.
tax credits. Any property that gets any kind of tax credit, some tax credits kind of tell you a lot about who owns the property. For example, homeowners tax credit, you would know that the person has a certain income level, and that would be identifiable information. So some tax credits I can imagine are left out because that would be too much TMI, I guess, PPI. I don't know about other fields, but yeah, I would imagine that they're taking them off because they provide too much information about the person that lives there.
Dexter asked about the parcels. Since I worked for Garrett County for 6 years, I did parcel edits for our county. I know that the counties are all different, and I've talked with Gary at Department of Planning, who collects those parcels from the counties that contribute, you know, and the ones that don't, Department of Planning has to create their parcels for them, which is what Garrett used to do before I started there. So yeah, it really is up to the counties. It'd be nice if there was some way to kind of, I suppose there's not enough GIS support in all the counties is one of the problems. But if that were in some way something that the county had to do, that would be, in my opinion, that would be great. But yeah, and then share them as well. And you would think that information could be shared publicly, but I don't know that the counties all have the same requirements that the state have.
I think we have a topic for next year's Data Week is to have the Maryland Department of Planning come talk about Maryland Property View. Note to our staff, we've got a session that we're going to try and curate for next year. But I want to thank our presenters here today. If you would please fill out the evaluation form that just got dropped